I think we are live. Let me see. Test, test, test. 1, 2, 3. Hopefully this is coming through loud and clear. Let me see. It seems to be coming through on my end. Just want to make sure that it is coming through loud and clear on your end. There we go. That's the most important thing. Welcome to the Total Fitness Bodybuilding video chat. My name is Lee Hayward, and over the course of the video chat today, I'm going to be hanging out here and answering questions and topics of discussion that you have related to fitness and nutrition. And this is something that I've been doing for many, many years. Actually started doing these back when live streaming video was brand new. I mean, my goodness, well over a decade now, that's for sure. But this is something I do every Friday, most Fridays. I won't say every Friday, but most Fridays when I'm able to do it. I have these live Q&A just as a way to connect with my online followers and coaching students. So the way these chats work is, like I say, I'm going to be hanging out here. So if you have any questions or topics of discussion related to fitness and nutrition, any specific challenges when it comes to your workouts, building muscle, losing fat, maybe you have questions related to supplements or injury prevention or mobility issues, anything fitness and related in those areas, feel free to type those questions and topics of discussion into our chat window, and I'll do the best I can to help you out over the course of our video chat today. So I just want to make sure it is coming through loud and clear. And we got one of our regulars, Dan, saying loud and clear. Thank you much. Appreciate it. I always want to make sure that it is coming through loud and clear. Kind of pointless for me to be talking into dead air here, not helping anybody. So welcome, Dan. And as you're tuning into the video chat, let me know who you are, where you're tuning in from, what part of the world are you tuning in from. All right, we got John joining in. Welcome, John. Who else is joining in? It's just, hey, feel free to just share where you're tuning in from. What part of the world is it? All right, what time is it in your local area? So for me, I'm in Newfoundland, Canada, and it's currently 6:41 p.m. Newfoundland is one of those interesting places. We have a half-hour time zone here. I don't know who the mastermind was to decide to put, Newfoundland in a half-hour time zone, so you're always off kilter with the rest of the world. So my calendar is literally booked on the half hour, right? I have to do that in order to line up with everybody else. So it's just one of those weird things, right? Half-hour time zone, right? An hour and a half ahead of Eastern time. Who else do we have joining in? Let us see. We have Robert's joining. Welcome, Robert. We've got Lee Dunnigan joining. Welcome. Omer. John saying 10 p.m. in the UK. Who else is joining in? Cameron's joining in. Current news. Lots of questions coming through. So again, as far as the questions go, feel free to type in your questions and topics of discussion into our chat window. And I always like to give a heads up. Pretty much anything goes, right? Like I don't believe in stupid questions. If you have a question that's a genuine, legitimate question about fitness and nutrition, feel free to type it in there, because you know what? Someone else may have a similar question. And by you having the courage to post that question into our chat window there, not only could you be helping yourself with the discussion, but you could also be potentially helping somebody else get some valuable content from this as well. Now, I say that with a bit of tongue in cheek, because I've often said this in the past, like, hey, there's no such thing as a stupid question. And then people go out of their way to post stupid questions, right? They're just trying to, throw me off kilter here. So if I can help you, right, I'll go ahead and do so. If I can't, I'll let you know, or I'll try and point you in the right direction to somebody who can, right? Like, even though I've been doing this for over 30 years, I don't claim to have all the answers, right? I'm not a know-it-all. I don't claim to be, a guru or an expert or anything like that, but it's something that I have a passion for, and something that I've gained a few tips and insights along the way over the past 30 years of being involved with the fitness industry and coaching hundreds, if not, hundreds in person and indirectly thousands more online. So I've learned a few tips and tricks along the way, and I'm happy to share those, but I'm not so thick-headed to think that I got it all figured out. I'm still learning myself. And in fact, right now, brings in a good segue to something that I'm currently doing. I'm actually attending a certification program now. It's a Master Health certification through Precision Nutrition. It's their level 2 program. And I got to say, this has been very eye-opening for me, especially as someone who's been in the bodybuilding and fitness industry for years. And I think that what they're covering, their master health certification, really focuses on the mindset, the inner game side, the psychology behind fitness and nutrition. Like what's going on up here in between our ears, and not just the tactics of what to do. Because let's face it, everybody knows what to do when it comes to fitness and nutrition, or at least they know enough to get moving in the right direction. Like we all know we should eat right. We all know we should exercise. We all know we should get lots of sleep. We should drink plenty of water. We should avoid alcohol and cigarettes and recreational drugs and all that kind of stuff. We all know what we should be doing, but how come people do or don't do what they should be doing, right? Like we know this stuff, but how come it can be challenging to do that? And this is what their Master Health Certification program really focuses. It's not a tactical, like, oh, here's your calories, here's your macros, here's your set and rep pattern, here's the best workouts and exercises to stimulate muscle growth. Like, I'm not saying that stuff's not important. It absolutely is. But if you can't master what's going on up here, master the internal friction and stuff, and actually get yourself to do the tactics are useless, right? I mean, we can have the best planned out workout, meal plan, everything, but if you can't actually follow it, it's useless, right? It's like, hey, I can give you the winning lottery numbers, but if you don't submit the ticket and buy and go through the process of getting the ticket and entering in those numbers, it's useless, right? You can have the combination to the safe, but if you don't enter it in, it's useless, right? So knowing the exercises, knowing the tactics is useless unless you can actually get yourself to do it. And one of the topics that we were actually discussing this week, and this is a 6-month certification program that I'm going, and I can't remember what week are we in now? Week 7, I believe it is now. So it's got many weeks to go. But the topic this week was the topic of ambivalence and resistance. And this was something that was really insightful. I got a big aha out of this, and I want to share here because it's something that I think everybody's going to be able to relate and benefit from. We all have this ambivalence and resistance when it comes to making change. And I'll give you some examples. And this is very appropriate, especially as we move into the holiday season. We want to eat better. We want to exercise more. We want to improve our health and fitness habits. But at the same time, we want to do some conflicting things as well. And I'll give you a prime example. I want to improve my eating habits so that I can lose body fat. But at the same time, I want to enjoy Christmas dinner and all the holiday goodies and desserts that I know are going to be, that I'm going to have over the holidays. Another one is I want to spend more time at the gym. I want to work out more, but I also want to spend more time with my family. You have these two opposing things, and both of them are very valuable. Both of them are very legit, and both of them are very important. And how do you make that compromise between, the thing that you should do, right, because it's better for you, but the thing that you want to do because you want to do it? Like, hey, I want to lose that weight, but I also want to eat that cupcake, right? I want to work out, but I also want to binge watch Netflix. Like, how do you balance that? And that's where it can really be a struggle, and trying to find that balance, that compromise, and the solution that works for you. And the thing is it's not a one size fits all cookie cutter approach, right? If it was, we'd all be following this one size fits all cookie cutter approach, and everybody be ripped and jacked, and there'd be no such thing as overweight and obesity, and we'd all be Greek gods with muscles glistening in the sunlight and loving life. But it's not necessarily the case. So this is something that we've been really focusing on and dealing with, how to work through these challenges with ourselves, and of course with coaching students as well. So it's very insightful and very powerful stuff. And this is stuff that we really go into detail with in our Muscle After 40 Blueprint program. It's not just giving people an action plan, like, hey, eat this food, do these exercises, go get them, Tiger. Yeah, you can do it. Like that's not the main focus. It's how do you actually make this a lifestyle approach where you can enjoy it and sustain it. And the whole bodybuilding approach of trying to like suffer it out, man up, no pain, no gain, don't be a pussy, embrace the suck, suffer it out, you can do it, rah, rah, rah. Yes, that works in the short term. And there are certain situations where that approach is applicable and can produce some dramatic results. Like most of the extreme before and after transformations that you see online come from this extreme all or nothing hardcore approach, where someone like puts on the blinders and says, that's it, for the short term, for the next 3 months or whatever, I'm putting this is front and center. This is the priority. And then the hell with everything else. Right. Like that's how I used to get ready for bodybuilding competitions back in the day, for especially the last 3 months before a contest. The blinders went on. There was no cheat meals. There was no social get-togethers. There was no restaurants. There was none of that stuff. It was just eat, sleep, train, repeat, boiled chicken and broccoli, 2 hours of cardio, 6 days a week in the gym, suffer it out, burn the candle at both ends. And that approach works. It freaking works. There's no doubt about it. But the problem is it's not enjoyable and it's not sustainable. And then you get to the point where you start to dread that process and you're like, I just can't wait for this to be over. I can't wait to get back to living a normal life again. And the problem with that, as soon as you go back to whatever your normal is, you undo all the progress you made. And then you're back to square one, rebound, weight gain, yo-yo diet, fatter than ever. And then in the bodybuilding world, then we try to justify that by saying, I'm bulking up, right? I packed on 30 pounds of fat after my last contest because I'm bulking, right? No, you're not bulking. You just couldn't control your appetite and you started eating and binging on junk food and got fat in the process. And we don't want to say we got fat and we got lazy. We want to say I'm bulking, right? I'm trying to get bigger. Of course, you look bigger with clothes on, but it ain't quality bigger. It's just sloppy fat, gut bigger, And that's what I did myself for years. Like for 17 years as a competitive bodybuilder, that was the cycle that I went through. But when I was going through it, like I'd never share that with anybody. Like the pictures that I used to post on Facebook and the videos that I did on YouTube and stuff. The only time I ever showed, the progress was when I was at my peak, right? I'd never reveal the dirty little secret of like, hey, this peak is only temporary. And then afterwards, I'm going to balloon up and get fat and out of shape and all that. So it's the dirty little secret of competitive bodybuilding, is that all or nothing extreme approach. And the secret to sustainability and making this a lifestyle is finding out how to balance that in between. And this is a never-ending journey. This is something that I'm really trying to focus on mastering, not only for myself, but to also help you guys, help my coaching students and followers, because that's where the challenge is, right? It's not just tell me my macros, tell me my calories, what's, the best workout split, how many sets and reps. Like, again, not saying that that's not important, but that's way up here, whereas we need to lay the foundation down here, right? We need to build a big, strong base before we start worrying about the details, right? That's like trying to worry, what color should I paint my house before you have a foundation built, right? Not saying that painting your house is not important. Of course it is, but the color of the paint is not going to matter if you don't have a solid foundation on the bottom. So we need to lay that solid foundation with this habits and lifestyle, and then the mindset that goes into it. So again, this is something that I'm working on, and I'll be sharing more of it, as we go through the whole process, but just wanted to kind of share that with you. I mean, the challenges that we're going through and the ambivalence and the resistance that a lot of people have, because so often I hear people say, I know what to do, but I just can't do it. Right? That's the struggle. And if it was as simple as simply knowing what to do, then yeah, we'd all be in shape, but it's not the case. All right, let's jump right in. Let's see what we have here. I'm going to start to see a lot of questions and comments and interaction coming through, so I don't want to leave you guys hanging. Let's get into it. Where we got there? Let's see, a lot of people joining in. Current news. Give your thoughts on 8-day split. Monday chest. Where do you live? An 8-day split. Anyway, Monday's chest and biceps, Tuesday's back and triceps, Wednesday's legs, Thursday's shoulders, repeat, and Sunday off. Well, I don't know where an 8-day. I'm counting the days. 1, 2, 3, 4 off. Anyway, I don't know if that's a mistypo or whatever, but what do you want to know my thoughts on? I mean, it's a body part split. I get. There's several people message me on a regular basis, and I don't know, maybe this is current news. I don't know, but every day, I kid you not, every day I get an email asking, why do you think about this split? Now, I don't know if it's just somebody messing with me or what, but a lot of people ask, what do you think of this split? And they'll throw out like a push-pull legs, and then they'll throw out a body part split, and then they'll throw out this split. And like, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? What do you think? Like, just choose a freaking workout. Like, it's not the workout. It's all the other things that go into the workout, right? Like the nutrition that you're following it up with, the sleep and lifestyle habits. All these other things have such a bigger impact in what order of exercises you do. In my case, I do total body workouts. That's what I've been doing for the past several years now. I've been since what? Pretty much for the past 6 years, I've been doing total body workouts. Now I've changed a little bit every now and then. I might, for a few weeks, I'll do something a little different. Like I might do a push-pull legs, or, for a while I did like a powerlifting type of split where it wasn't body parts, it was exercise focused. So it's like bench day, squat and deadlift day, and you focus on those key exercises plus assistant exercises to support those. But for the most part, I keep resorting back to total body. And the reason I do that is because I find that it works well for me, my schedule, and just my situation. And what you need to do is find what works for you, your schedule, and your situation. Now, the advantages of total body is it's very flexible. Meaning, like if you're the type of person who you don't have 6 days a week to go to the gym, or you don't want to be 6 days a week in the gym, whether you physically can do it or not, you just choose not to, and you may be going to the gym like 3 days a week. Well, it's ideal in those situations because you're still getting to hit all your major muscle groups frequently, right? So you're doing a little bit for all your major muscle groups. Another thing I like about it is it doesn't create excessive soreness in any one area. Like if I go in there and I do leg day and I do 20 or 30 sets for legs, I'm going to be painfully sore the next day, and it's not going to be fun. Or if I go in there and I annihilate chest and I do 20 or 30 sets for chest, like it's going to be painfully sore the next day, or back, or whatever body part. I don't like feeling sore, right? I like to feel loose and limber and good. So if I do a little bit for several different muscle groups, I stimulate the muscle and allow it to rest, recover, and grow, but it never gets into that painful soreness where it's deliberate, or it hinders my mobility and movement the next day. So that's another plus that I like about the total body workouts. It's a little bit of frequent stimulation, rest, recover, grow, and I don't ever feel beat up after those workouts. I feel good. So that's another thing. And in my situation, I usually work out at the gym 2 to 3 days a week. Literally, like that's my weight training is usually 2 to 3 days per week. So if I end up missing a few days, or I'm traveling, or I can't make it, or whatever, at least I'm still hitting all my major muscle groups 2 or 3 times a week. So I'm getting a little bit of stimulation. Whereas if you got a body part split routine and you miss a few days, you could have large gaps between hitting that same muscle group again. So, like for example, if you had a 6-day split and you were doing a different muscle group each day, and then for some reason over the holidays, the gym is closed, or snowstorm, whatever, you get sick, something happens, and then you have a few days off, then all of a sudden now there's a great big gap between body part workouts. So that's one drawback between a body part split. And again, another thing is you don't get to hit your muscle groups as frequently. And of course, when you do hit them, you have that tendency to kind of like, well, I got to make up for it because I haven't hit this muscle group all week. I got to really go in there and do a good one. And there's a higher risk of repetitive movement strain and injury when you go in there and you do a lot for that one muscle group versus doing a little bit more frequently. So not saying that one is right, wrong, good, or bad, because you'll see people who make progress with all kinds of different workout routines. You will see some people who enjoy the body part split and actually make it work. And for those that make it work, they typically have more time, or they're more committed to making time to go to the gym on a daily basis. So like if you're one of those people, like that's it, you love the gym, you're working out and you're going to the gym every day, then yeah, maybe you want to do a chest day, a leg day, a back day, an arm day, a shoulder day, a whatever day, and break it up like that because you just like the frequency of going to the gym. Whereas if you're the type of person like, hey, I only want to go to the gym 2 or 3 times a week, then a type of a split routine where you're hitting multiple muscle groups in the same session is probably more appropriate. But it's not good, bad, right, or wrong. It's what's right for you at this stage of the game based on your goals, your situation, your schedule, and what it is you're trying to focus on. So, for everybody who's asking my thoughts on the workout program, my thoughts really don't matter. It's what works for you. That's what matters. What are your thoughts? That's what you should be asking yourself. What do you think is going to work the best for you? And if you're not sure, just try something. Just say like, hey, I'm not sure. You know what? I'm going to try this, right? And try this and see how it works. And, evaluate your progress. Do you like the results you're getting? If you do, great, keep doing it. If you don't, how about you try something else? And if you're really stuck, then maybe get someone to help guide you through this process. Like, that's the purpose of having a coach. A coach is it's like a guide. You can go on a journey by yourself. Like, let's say I want to hike Mount Everest, right? I can go there and try and do it all by myself, or I could hire a guide. Someone's been there, done that, has experiences, helped other people do the same. And I probably have much higher success rate if I have a guide take me through it versus me trying to figure it all out on my own. So that's the purpose of having a coach. It's not necessarily to be the drill sergeant and hard ass on you, but it's a guide to help you along the way, right? The way I like to view a coach and the whole coach student relationship, it's like we're like Google Maps, right? You want to get to a destination, you got Google Maps, right? I'm going to help guide you through the best route to find your way to that destination. And also going to provide guardrails to keep you on the road so you don't fall off the track, right? We're going to be having Google Maps guide you in the right direction and guardrails to keep you on the right track. And we're going to help you to navigate through. And if there's some challenges, if there's some detours, we can readjust along the way and get you to your destination. Even though it may not go perfectly as planned, there might be some hiccups and detours and setbacks along the way, which usually there is, but we'll ultimately get you there by navigating through those setbacks and challenges along the way. So if you need some help, hey, look into it, whether you reach out to me or you reach out to a coach at your local gym or somewhere like that. But like, there's nothing wrong with getting help and getting coached. I mean, heck, I've been doing this for over 30 years and I'm still getting coached, right? Learn from other people's mistakes instead of trying to make your own. All right, moving on. What else we got there? Just a second, guys. I'm trying to load my thing there. Sometimes when I click the buttons, the comments don't load properly. Next one from Gabriel. Hello, Lee. Happy to see you healthy. I'm happy to be healthy too. I was on a full body split since September, and I want to take the next step into a 2 split. I guess you mean a 2-day split. Do you have any recommendations? My pull muscles grow slower even with proper form. All right, it's kind of a very complimentary follow-up question to the previous one. And again, there's nothing wrong with full body workouts, as we were mentioned before. I mean, you've been doing it since September. I've been doing it since 6 years. Now, before that, when I was back in my bodybuilding competition days, I used to do more bodybuilding part split routines because I found that was effective for what I was trying to focus on. But nowadays, I usually do the total body, as I mentioned. So, but one key thing that you noticed here, you say your pull muscles, i.e. the back and the biceps, those are typically the pulling muscles, tend to grow slower. Because you're aware of that, we can prioritize those stubborn body parts. And this is the next evolution in your training journey, is once you get the habits in place, right? You're going to the gym, you're training consistently, you're eating consistently, and all the stuff you're supposed to do. Once you have some sort of routine and habits in place, then we want to monitor the results and see how your body actually responds. And in your case, you've been noticing, okay, I'm doing this, I'm seeing some progress, but these muscle groups tend to lag behind. What we can do now is prioritize your workouts to place more emphasis on the weaker muscle groups, the ones that tend to be slower to respond, and a little bit less emphasis on your stronger muscle groups, or the ones that are responding well. And this is something that everybody's going to notice if they're consistent enough. Like, you'll find certain body parts respond better than others for whatever reason. It could be just genetics, meaning you simply have more muscle fibers, or you're able to get a more mind-muscle connection in certain muscle groups than others. Maybe you just have more muscle cells in certain areas and they respond better for whatever reason. Maybe you have mechanical leverages, you're stronger in certain body parts and you're able to exert more force and get more muscle stimulation there. Whatever. There's all kinds of reasons, but bottom line, you notice that you have some stronger and weaker body parts. So what I want to do is prioritize those weaker muscle groups. And how you can do that is there's a couple ways. One is you could kind of stick to the same type of schedule you are now, but then have a separate day where you focus on those weaker muscle groups. So you give them a bit of extra muscle stimulation. So like, let's just say, for example, you're going to the gym 3 days a week. If you feel like you can step it up and add in a fourth day, maybe you add in a fourth day where you just prioritize those weaker muscles. Now, the drawback with that is you are building on your work capacity here. Like you're adding in an extra day if you do choose that route. Another one is you could simply modify your existing workouts that you're currently doing now. So instead of just doing all full body workouts, you could say take your weaker muscle groups, in this case the back and the biceps, and make sure that you're training those first in those full body workouts so that you hit them when you're fresh, you're full of energy. Like don't save them for afterwards. Like don't start with chest as the first exercise or the first movement in the workout. Start with the stubborn. Those are harder exercise. Those harder to grow muscle groups. Start with those first when you're I'm getting tongue tied here. When you're fresh and full of energy, start with the weaker muscle groups first so that you prioritize them. Even early in the week, start with the weaker muscle groups first. And this is something that I've done in the past as well. Like in my case, I find shoulders and arms tend to be my stubborn body parts. Chest, back, and legs, they tend to respond better. So one of the things I've done in the past is prioritize arms and shoulders. And I used to even put them on their own separate days. Right? Have days where I just go in and focus on those particular muscle groups, and then take my stronger body parts and kind of do like a general workout where I was doing a little bit, almost like a maintenance routine, just to keep them where they are while I was prioritizing the weaker muscle groups. And I mean, you can go about doing something along those lines for your own program. The one thing that I want you to realize here as well is with your training, I want you to visualize like you have 100% recovery. Like you got 100% recovery to dedicate to everything. So it's not like, hey, I can go 100% with my chest, I can go 100% with my back and 100% for my legs. No, you got 100% total. So if your back is the weakest body part, and that's the one you want to prioritize, well, you can put that on the front burner, and then you kind of have to put your stronger body parts on the back burner. So you can't continue to train them at full intensity and expect to be able to train your weaker muscle groups at higher intensity. Like you have to adjust it accordingly so that you balance it out and you allow adequate time for rest and recovery in there. So what I would do is take your stronger muscle groups. So if that's, say, like your chest is strong, your legs are strong, and those are muscles that you feel are you don't need to place extra emphasis on. Scale back the volume, scale back the intensity on those body parts, and kind of think of maintenance while you put the emphasis on the back and the biceps and the muscles that are more stubborn to grow. So you're still doing the same total volume, but more of the emphasis is on the areas that need it and less of the emphasis is on the areas that don't need it. So that's how I would go about it. Again, if you want some specific help with this, like feel free to reach out, right? We can, probably chat about a customized training program, to gear you, to put you in that right direction. But just based on what I shared, you could probably modify your own program and do it, and start making progress in the right direction. Who else do we got? Jerry is joining in. Hello, sir. Sir. It makes me sound old when you call me sir. My weight is 95 kilograms, I would assume. Or I don't know. Maybe it's 95 pounds. I have no idea. Anyway, I would assume it's 95 kilograms, though. My weight is 95, 5'9". The reason why I'm wondering if it's kilograms or because 5'9" is standard weight, could be kilograms. But anyway, you're 95 and you're 5'9". I need 3,000 calories to maintain my weight. But if I cut 1,000 calories and only eat 2,000 calories, plus burn another 1,000 calories, will I lose weight? Yes. First off, you don't need to create this massive calorie deficit. Like, and I'm going to give you another thing too. These, I need 3,000 calories to maintain my weight. That's an educated guess. Like you probably went to some online calculator and, and typed in your age, your height, your weight, and it spits out, you need to consume 3,000 calories. That's just an educated guess. It's like putting you in the ballpark. You may need more, you may need less. It really depends. It's not a surefire science. And a lot of people, they take these numbers literally and they think like, oh, because the calorie calculator says I need 3,000 calories, like I really need 3,000 calories. It's a ballpark estimate at best. How you know how many calories you actually need is by tracking your food intake, seeing how much you're actually eating, what it takes. Like, let's assume you're maintaining your weight right now. Like most people are probably pretty close to maintaining their weight when you just eat a comfortable amount. Add up how many calories that is and average it out over the course of the week or over the course of a couple of weeks and say like, okay, this is what I'm averaging and this is what I'm maintaining at. This is probably my maintenance calories. Like that's more accurate than just typing in your age, height, and weight into an online calculator and having it spit out a number. Like what you're currently eating on a regular basis, if you actually recorded and tracked it and calculated it out, that's probably your true maintenance calories. Now, if you want to lose weight, all you have to do is be a little less than your maintenance calories. That's it. Whether you consume a little less or you burn a little more, it just has to be a little better than it was before. It doesn't have to be 1,000 calorie cut plus an extra 1,000 calories burned. Like that's overkill. That's not sustainable whatsoever. Like, yeah, you'll lose weight. If you have a 2,000 calorie deficit, you will absolutely lose weight. I guarantee it. But how do you feel with a 2,000 calorie deficit? One, you're going to be hungry. You're going to be irritable. You're not going to be able to function. Like it's a short-term quick fix mindset. It's not a sustainable one. The biggest calorie deficit I'd recommend is a 500 calorie deficit. Like that's plenty. You don't need to go any more than that. Like a 500 calorie deficit, start with that. Like that's plenty. And the idea is you want to just, when you're thinking of fat loss, think of dieting on as high of a calorie intake as you can while still making progress. Don't just unnecessarily cut calories for the sake of trying to speed up the process. Because yeah, you'll speed it up in the short term, but you're killing yourself in the long term because nobody can sustain this massive calorie reduction for long. You might be able to suffer it out for a few weeks. You might even be able to suffer it out for a few months, depending on how much willpower and motivation and your ability to suffer, like how much you can suffer it out for. But eventually, I don't care how tough you are, everybody has their threshold of willpower and ability to suffer. Eventually, you're going to get to the point where like, I can't do this anymore. It's not worth it. F it, screw it. I give in. And then you go back to your old habits. And then that calorie deficit and the weight loss that you had, you're going to just say, screw it. And like, where's the all-you-can-eat buffet? Where's the pizza place? Where's the ice cream shop? Where's all this crap that you've been craving and depriving yourself of? And then once you go on this binge, you get the rebound weight gain, and then you're back to square one, fatter than ever. And ultimately, you didn't make any progress. Like, yeah, you might drop 30 pounds over the next few months, but then a year later, you got 40 pounds back on, because you suffered it out, lost a bunch of weight, but you couldn't sustain it. And then you go off the rails and you gain it all back. I'd much rather you lose the weight slowly and keep it off. Like, even think of, what if I lost 1 pound this month? 1 pound a month. Like, I know most people listening to this say like 1 pound a month, that's nothing. I mean, hey, I could lose that. That's easy. I wouldn't even have to try hard to lose a pound a month. Well, do it. Like, lose a pound a month and then lose a pound the next month and the next month and the next month. And even if like, set your goal at that, like, hey, I'm going to lose a pound a month. And I know it sounds so small and simple, but then think of like, where are you going to be in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now? Like, you'll most likely hit your goal weight and be able to do so without feeling like you're suffering it out on a diet. And that's the secret to sustainability, is how can you maintain this as a long-term thing instead of thinking like, how can I suffer it out in the short term and lose it as fast as possible? Because that doesn't last. Yes, it works in the short term, but what's the point of losing 30 pounds in the course of the next 3 months only to put 40 pounds on over the course of 6 months? Like, you'd be better off not doing anything at all and just staying where you are. But if you could slowly lose weight, slowly make progress, and actually enjoy the process, and then just let that compound day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, that's the secret to sustainability. And very often when you see somebody who has like amazing, like you look at someone you admire, whether it's in fitness or whatever, and you say, wow, I want to be like them. And you see what they really did to achieve it. It's not that they suffered it out or did some extreme crazy thing in the short term. It's that they were consistent year after year. And very often the people that you admire the most, they've probably been doing this for years. It's not something they did over the course of a few weeks, right? It's something that they've been doing for years, and it's like they've mastered it. And that's the path you want to take. I know it's slow and steady doesn't sound sexy, but that's the secret to success. Slow and steady. All right. So, I mean, again, I would totally drop the idea of trying to create this 2,000 calorie deficit, because sure, it's going to work, right? But is it going to last? Hell no. Right. I would put money on it, saying, hey, if you created a 2,000 calorie deficit, you wouldn't be able to last for a year. There's no way you'd last for a year. I mean, I'd be surprised you'd last for a month, like, being honest. Right? It's something it's only the short-term, extreme, suffer it out type of mentality. And that extreme suffer it out approach never lasts. You have to enjoy the process, and nobody's going to enjoy a 2,000 calorie deficit. There's no way. Anyway, let us move on. Robert is asking, in doing shoulder hanging, how often should you do them? I just started to do some. Shoulder hanging. I would like to know exactly what you mean by shoulder hanging. I'm thinking that it means hanging from a pull-up bar, like the one that I have above my head here. Just grab it and hang, and just let it stretch out your arms, your shoulders, your chest, and upper body. And is that what you're referring to? I'm going to assume it is, and just answer the question based on that. That's something I do every workout. It's like part of my post-workout stretching routine. Like, the way I go about my workouts is I always start off with a warm-up, usually, some sort of cardio, treadmill or rower, or stepper or something, just something to get my core temperature elevated, my body warmed up, my heart rate elevated, and get a light sweat going on before I hit the gym floor. All right, I want to get my body physically warmed up, especially in the wintertime. When it's freezing cold outside, and you want to get your body warmed up, because a cold muscle is more likely to be injured than a warm muscle. So just get things elevated, your core temperature, your blood flow, all that. Then when I'm doing the workouts, I always do some mobility exercises, just to limber up the body parts that I'm going to be training. Some arm circles, some knee bends or rotator cuff rotations, whatever it is that I'm training. I want to warm up those body parts and my muscle groups, get the joints, tendons, and ligaments limbered up. Then when I'm doing my exercises, I always start off with lightweight, and do several progressively heavier warm-up sets, building up to my top working weight. So I'm always thinking injury prevention and reducing the aches and pains, right? So I always go through that process. After I do my workout, then I do some post-workout stretching, and I'll stretch out the body parts that I trained. And one of the stretches that I always do is hang from the pull-up bar. Literally just grab the pull-up bar and just do a dead hang. And I'll use different grips. Like, a lot of pull-up bars these days have different grips. So you do your regular grip, you can do an underhand grip, and very often you have these parallel or even these angled hand position grips, depending on the gym you're at and the type of pull-up bars they have. A lot of them have multiple different grips, and I like to use all of them. So basically just grab it, hold it for as long as your hands can hold on. Like, it's a great grip strength builder as well. So build up your hands and forearm strength, but do that. And it's a great way to stretch out all the muscles of your upper body. So it'll stretch out your arms and your shoulders and your chest and your back, and help to decompress the spine. And it just feels really good. It's a very therapeutic stretch to do. So I'll do that literally after every single workout. All right. What else we got there? What else have we got? Let us see. Neil is joining in. Good morning, Lee. In a total body split with compound only lifts, will it cause muscle imbalances? I read about that we need corrective isolation exercises to prevent injury and issues. Your thoughts? No, well, you don't need to do only compound lifts, right? But the key thing here, Neil, when you're working your body parts, what I would recommend, and this is what I do personally, is I always think of opposing muscle groups, right? Opposing movement patterns. So if I do a horizontal press, I want to follow it up with a horizontal pull. If I do an overhead press, I want to follow it up with an overhead pull. If I do a bicep curl, I want to do a tricep extension. If I do a leg curl, I want to do a leg extension. I always think of opposing movement patterns, and that's the way I structure my workouts. So I always train them in that way. And this way you're hitting both sides, the agonist and the antagonist. And when you pair up your workouts like that, it's very unlikely you're going to have imbalances or develop imbalances. Now, if you already have an imbalance, you may need to double up the volume for the weaker side and kind of prioritize to minimize that. And this often happens in the case of people who, when they start working out, they're focusing on the show off muscles, the chest and the biceps and the abs and all the muscles that they can see when they look in the mirror. And then they forget, oh, I got a back there. and they go their first 6 months or a year of training without even doing any back or leg exercises because they just want chest and arms, right? Which sometimes happens. And if that's the case, and you all of a sudden now you've got these imbalance because you've got a year or a head start on certain muscle groups and a year of neglect on others, then you may need to reprioritize and like double up the volume for the lagging body parts, things like that. But if you're training things in balance and proportion from the start, it's very unlikely that you will have imbalances or any significant imbalances in the future. Now, if you do notice them, then you can take corrective measures to prioritize that. So, for example, if your rear delts are lagging behind, your front delts, then hey, train those first. Maybe do some extra volume or some, add in an extra exercise to kind of minimize that imbalance and to prioritize those stubborn areas. But if you are training properly and hitting everything in balance and proportion, it's very unlikely you're going to have any issues with this. So, like I say, that this is the way I've been training now for the last several years, and I haven't had any mobility issues because of training this way. I actually find it quite helpful. What else we got there? Let's see. Gabriel, I think I already answered. It's the same Gabriel. I think it is. Gabriel asked a question earlier. Yep. The main reason for me stepping into a split is that I feel a lot more pressure on my joints with a 3 to 4 full body per workout, even as a perfectionist who does all the exercises as clean as possible. This is interesting to note, and you're bringing up a good point here. With your workouts, there's more to recovery than just muscle recovery. There's joint and tendons and ligaments. And one thing you'll find, especially as you get older, right, as you get into your 40s and beyond, very often it's not just the muscles that need more recovery time, it's the joints, tendons, and ligaments. So that's another reason why I like having the full body workouts. And I'm actually going to use it as an argument for the full body workouts. When I do, instead of going in there and annihilating, having chest day, 20 plus sets for chest and leg day and back day and all this, I find when I do a little bit, like one exercise for chest and one exercise for legs, one exercise for back and one exercise for biceps and things like that, it doesn't tear down it doesn't cause a lot of that repetitive movement strain. And it's a little bit of stimulation, then I allow it to rest, recover, and grow. And when I'm doing, in my case, I strive for 3 workouts a week. Sometimes it's only 2, but if it's a good week, it's 3 workouts a week. Then I'm having at least 48 hours between training sessions. So I get a full day of rest and recovery in between. And I find that allows not only the muscles to recover, but also the joints, tendons, and ligaments. So it's a little bit of stimulation and allow an adequate time for recovery. And I find that actually helps eliminate my joint pain a lot more versus when I was doing body part splits and I was doing a lot of repetitive movements and higher volume in that session. It would very often leave me with elbow pain and shoulder pain and knee pain and all that. Whereas I find when I'm doing the total body workouts, lower volume, but more frequency, it actually helps to eliminate it. And then, of course, allow an adequate time between those sessions to allow for the joints, tendons, and ligaments to recover. But bottom line, you need to experiment and see what's going to work for you. Because if what you're doing now is causing pain and pressure on the joints, then you need to do something different, right? We need to change up some of those variables. And who knows? It could be changing up the exercises, the splits, or whatever. Sometimes it might be you could stick with the same split, if you will, but just choosing exercises that are not causing as much pain and stress on the joints, tendons, and ligaments. Choosing different exercise variations. A prime example, I was having a chat with one of my coaching students today. It was Cameron, and he was mentioning that barbell shoulder presses cause a lot of discomfort when he performs that movement. But if he does a dumbbell shoulder press, it doesn't cause as much discomfort. Now, he would prefer to do the barbell, like he feels he would get more muscle stimulation from the barbell, but when he does it, it causes pain and discomfort. So instead, we swapped it out for a dumbbell. Other movements, like he found like a chest fly with the dumbbells cause pain and discomfort for his shoulders. Okay, well, we don't need to do that. We'll do another movement pattern instead, right? We'll do another exercise to work that same muscle group. So sometimes if you find certain exercises cause pain in the joints, tendons, and ligaments, you might be able to get away with it by just doing a different exercise variation that's better for you and your body type. And one of the things I want you to think about with your workouts is don't get hung up on the exercise, thinking like, I got to do this. I got to do bench presses because everybody got a bench. Or I got to do squats because squats are the best exercise in the world. Or I got to do deadlifts. Or I got to do overhead presses or rows or whatever. Like, you don't have to do any exercise. Unless you're a competitive power lifter and that's how you compete. But if you're just building your body for health and fitness and just to lose fat and get in shape, you don't have to do any particular exercise. You just have to work the muscle. So if a bench press hurts, try another variation. Maybe you could do a chest press machine. Maybe you could do a dumbbell press. Maybe you could do a push-up. Like, there's other movement patterns that work the same muscle group, and it may allow you to do so with less pain or discomfort. Same with squats. If squats kills your knees and your lower back, then hey, maybe we can do something else. Maybe we can do a leg press, or maybe we can do some other leg machines that we have available at the gym. All right, like, don't get hung up on the exercise. Focus on working the muscle, and that's and doing so with exercises that you feel comfortable in performing. All right, where else am I now? Let us see. Second, now I'm just lost my spot here in the chat again. Hide that one. Where else am I? Second, now I'm scrolling through. Where are we to? Owen, Merry Christmas. What are your thoughts on the best way to program a bench and a deadlift for strength in a 5x5 once a week? I'm not a beginner, but not really strong, mostly focused on hypertrophy. What's the best way to progress? Sorry, my bad. What's the best way to progress with the bench and the deadlift for strength, 5x5 or once a week? Oops, what did I do there? No, just changing things on my end. Hopefully everything's coming through on your end. There's not a one size fits all answer for this, because if you were working with me personally and we were coaching and designing a program, I'd want to know like what it is you're currently doing right now, what's working well, what's not working well. We'd need to really break it down and dissect it. Like, it's not like, hey, everybody has to do this because this is the best program, hands down. It's not as simple as that. It really is an individualized thing. And this is where I know it can get confusing. I wish there was a one size fits all answer. And if there was, there'd be no need for chats and coaches and all this stuff, because everybody be just doing that one size fits all answer and following the cookie cutter approach, and everything would be great. So it's more complex than that, because it depends on a lot of issues. Like, one, obviously you say you're not a beginner, but you're not really strong. Well, like, what's that? Like, what's your definition of strong? Like, what's working well, what's not working well? Because what's considered strong is relevant, right? Like, if you're talking to the average person, some people might consider, hey, benching your body weight is strong. To a competitive powerlifter, benching your body weight is novice. You're just getting started. So it's all relative, and what works better for one person may not necessarily work well for another. So one thing that I will suggest that can certainly help is thinking of working different aspects of strength. And what I mean by that is not always thinking like 5 by 5 or heavy low reps. There's a power in doing varying types of strength training. So there's a time and place for that heavy low rep strength training, such as a 5 by 5 program. There's also time and place for higher volume, higher repetition, more time under tension style of training. And there's different ways to go about that. You can incorporate it within the same workout, or maybe you can even go through phases where you do a phase of lower rep strength training, a phase of like more moderate rep hypertrophy training, and then a phase of higher rep, more muscular endurance conditioning type training, and cycling through different phases like that. And I find that when you change it up and go through different phases, very often you help to spur on new muscle growth, unique muscle stimulation. And each time you make that type of switch, you can usually experience some unique growth in that transition. So, like again, it's really hard to give you a one size fits all answer here, but bottom line is you need to provide some unique muscle stimulation. And a little trick, this is like a hack. If you go to a strength and conditioning coach, or you go to a personal trainer at the gym or whatever, very often, if you have any type of experience with your workouts, because like if you're brand new, anything you do consistently is going to produce results. Because anything, if you've never done anything, then just the fact that you're doing something, that's unique muscle stimulation, and your body's usually going to adapt and grow and respond to it. But every program you follow goes through adapt, grow, plateau. Adapt, grow, plateau. So you start something, right? Your body has to adapt to it. In the process of adapting, you're going to see some progress. You're going to grow from it. But eventually, you keep doing that same thing over and over and over again, it's going to become stale, and you're going to eventually hit a plateau. Once you plateau, then you need to change it up and do something unique. Like whether it's changing up the split, changing up the exercises, changing up the set and rep pattern. Something needs to change. You need to provide some unique muscle stimulation to get things to the adapt and then to the grow. And then eventually you're going to plateau with that new program. So you need to go through that. Every program goes through adapt, grow, plateau. So if you go to the trainer at the gym and you say like, hey man, I've been working out for the past year, and it's just like, I don't know, I made good gains initially, but now it just seems like I can't make any gains. Then he's going to say, okay, what have you been doing? And you say, well, this is what I've been doing. And you lay out, this is the exercises, the sets and reps, and this is my routine. All he's going to do is like totally turn it upside down. So if you say, I've been doing a 5 by 5 program, he says, well, you know what? You need to start doing sets of 15 reps. You need to get more time under tension. You need to get more volume in there. And it just totally opposite. So like if you're doing heavy, low rep strength training, he's going to have you doing higher rep, more time under tension work. And just the fact that you're providing unique muscle stimulation, now you're going to see some progress. You're going to start to grow. You're going to start, go through that adapt, grow, plateau phase with this new program. Vice versa. If you come in saying, hey, I'm doing sets of 15 for all my exercises and this and that, then he might have you do a 5 by 5 because that's unique muscle stimulation. And the fact that you're training in a different rep range, you're working different muscle fibers. Now you're going to start that whole adapt, grow, plateau all over again with a new program. So basically, changing up what it is that you're doing will help to spur on that new muscle stimulation. So that's simple. Like if you need help with this, feel free to reach out to me. And I got my contact information and email down in the description below, or you can message me on Facebook or wherever. But if you want to do it on your own, just think of like, what is it you're currently doing right now? And think of like, how can I change that up? How can I make that totally unique muscle stimulation so that I'm providing that unique stimulation to go through this adapt, grow, plateau phase with a new program. And this is kind of like the underlining message when it comes to training. Like if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, you're just going to kind of like beat your head against the wall. And even with my own workouts, like I change it up. Like I'll change up the exercises that I do. I sometimes change up the rep patterns I do. Like some days I'm feeling strong, so I might do heavier, lower rep training. Other days I might not feel as strong, so I'm just going to do some higher rep, time under tension, just kind of focus on pumping up the muscles. And some days I feel, hey, I want to push myself with harder exercises. I might want to do squats and deadlifts and bench presses and things like that. Other days I might not have the same strength and energy, and say, you know what, I'm going to choose a machine exercise variation. So I'm even though I do total body workouts, it's not like I do the same shit every single time I go to the gym. Like I change it based on the situation and how I'm feeling in the moment. So like if you're feeling strong, you can push it with higher intensity. If you're feeling lower and lower energy, you can do a lower intensity, easier workout. But bottom line, you need to provide that unique muscle stimulation in order to get your body responding again. All right, let's move on. See what else we got there. Where was that question to? There we go. Wait, no, hide current comment. All right. Just a second, guys. I lost my spot in the chat again because we've got three chats coming through, or not three chats, 3 video streams. There's YouTube, there's the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Facebook page, and my personal profile Facebook page. So I have the in the stream there, I'm getting the combination, the accumulation of all the different messages coming through on my end of the stream here. So, and I lost my place. Where is it? We got Granny joining in. Leah's still fire. Thanks, Granny. Granny McLies. Gotta love it. John, or Eagle Eye John. Eagle Eye. Why do you get onset muscle soreness more when you haven't trained in a long time or with a new exercise? Great question. You get... Well, let's just break that down. Someone who's brand new to exercise or is coming back to the gym after a layoff and they haven't done exercise in several weeks or several months, once you start exercising again, you're probably going to get sore, especially if you do too much too soon, which is a common tendency for a lot of people. And we're coming right up to that now with the whole New Year's resolution, right? Like January comes around, everyone's feeling fat and guilty after the holidays. They're like, oh man, I ate like a pig. I drank. I didn't exercise. I put on 10 pounds over the holidays. Look, oh man, I feel disgusting. I'm fat and I'm bloated and blah. I hate myself. So they want to go to the gym now, and that's it. January 1st, I'm going to work out. All right. I'm going to go on a diet. I'm going to start. Everything's going to change. January 1st. Look out. I'm right. I'm going to get to bed at a decent hour. I'm going to floss my teeth. I'm going to call my mom. I'm going to show up to work on time. Like I'm going to do everything right. January 1st. Holy shit, man. This is going to be a great year. Everything's gung ho. Diet, exercise, perfect. Boom. And that lasts for about 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden it's like, screw that. And they go back to normal again. But in that process, right, when everybody goes gung ho and they try to do too much too soon, like, I'm not just going to work out. I'm going to work out for 3 hours a day. Then you just overload too much too soon. And that creates a lot of stress on the body. It's too much for your body to handle. And very often you get sore in that process. But even if you are like, you're coming back to the gym after a bit of a layoff, anytime you go through that process where you're providing unique muscle stimulation, your body has to adapt, grow, and plateau, like I mentioned before. So in that process, in that adaptation process, very often you will get sore. So if you do an exercise that you've never done before, that's totally new, is totally foreign to your body, you're very often you're going to experience some soreness. Unless you're very smart about it and you build up to it gradually and progressively, which most people never do. Most people don't go through it slowly and gradually enough to let themselves adapt and build up so that they don't feel sore. Most people go in there and train. They want to get a workout. They want to feel like they did something. And in the process of feeling like they did something, they end up doing too much and they end up getting sore. Now, it's not necessarily a bad thing as long as it's just muscle soreness, because muscle soreness will heal and recover and, you'll come back stronger. But if you go too much and you end up getting injured, that's where you're setting yourself back. So I'd always recommend erring on the side of being conservative and cautious, right? Like there's no harm in going in and doing an easy workout. Like you can go in there and stop short of failure. You don't need to bust your ass and kill yourself and whatever. Like it's okay to lift light weights, right? Nobody's going to get mad at you if you go in and train light. But if you go in there and you do too much too soon and you get injured, that's definitely going to set you back, right? Because, if you do an easy workout, hey, you can always train harder the next time. Right? You can always do better than you did before. But if you go in there and you do too much too soon and you get injured, you're not jumping back in there the next time. So I always recommend erring on the side of being cautious and conservative. But if you're not, you're too stubborn for that, which I'm speaking from experience. I'm very often too stubborn to do that myself. And you do too much too soon, you very often get sore. All right. That's usually the way it works. Now, the ironic thing about it is the more you condition yourself, so the more you train and the better shape you get in, the less soreness you experience because your adaptive energies have built up to the point where your body can handle that. It can handle the stress of those exercises. It can handle the volume, handle the workload. And very often you experience less soreness the better shape you're in. And this applies in all areas of life, not just in exercise, but it also applies in just your general work capacity for whatever the heck it is you're doing. Like, think of your job. Like, if somebody is brand new to a job they've never done before, I mean, they go in there. I mean, at the start, it might feel exhausting because, oh my God, there's all this stuff coming at me and I got to process this and I got to learn how to do that. And oh, this is just too much. It's overwhelming. Like, give you another prime example that we probably can all relate to. Think of when you learn to drive a car, assuming you know how to drive a car. But think of the first time you ever got behind the wheel of a car. You think, okay, how do I do this? Okay, I got to have 10 and 2 on the steering wheel. Okay, where do I put the key? Where do I start it up? Okay, I got to put the car in gear. Oh my God. Okay, there's the brake, the gas, the clutch. Okay, there, got this. All right. Yep. How much pressure do I apply to the gas? How much pressure do I apply to brake? How far do I have to turn the wheel? What? I got to look over my shoulder, check my blind spot. Oh my God, this is so complicated. And it's overwhelming. Like, you could literally get overwhelmed trying to drive a car and maneuver it through traffic when it's brand new. But after you've been doing it for several years, you just get in the car and you don't even think about it. It's like autopilot. You're doing it on the subconscious, and you could be in the car, you could be talking to your passenger, you could sing along to the radio, whatever, and you're almost doing it on autopilot. So it doesn't take as much mental energy to drive the car once you've been doing it, and it becomes second nature. So the same applies with your workouts as well. Once you've adapted to it and you know how to do it, it's less stress on the body. So you don't, again, the fitter you are, the less demanding it is. So because your body has that, not only the mental capacity, but the physical capacity. Because again, you look at when you're learning a new exercise, you're not doing it on the subconscious. There's a lot of conscious effort, and that takes a lot of energy as well to try and learn the mechanics when you have to physically think about it versus if you can just do it on autopilot and do it on the subconscious. Right? Like, if you look at an elite level athlete, when they're performing, like, are they, whatever sport it is, like, even if you think of like a football player or a basketball player or a gymnast or whatever, like, are they consciously thinking of what they're doing, or are they just doing it on autopilot? It's just motor patterns that have been ingrained over thousands of repetitions, and years of practice, just all ingrained. So it's coming almost effortlessly because it's done on the subconscious level. Whereas when someone's brand new, they have to physically learn all that stuff. And it takes not only physical effort, but it takes mental effort as well. And it's just a lot more exhausting and more demanding and more draining on your body. So once you get it to the point where it's second nature, you'll experience a lot less fatigue from whatever it is you're doing. And that applies to the workouts as well as, everything else that you do in life as well. But that's why you will feel more soreness with your workouts when you're doing something new or something you haven't done in a long time, because you're just out of practice and your body has to adapt to that whole process again. All right, moving on. Lee Dunnigan joining in again. He's a regular to our chats. He says, any advice on when I lift Atlas stones? My right hamstring has a sharp, tight feeling in it. I always warm up my hamstrings before the lift, and my physio says my hamstrings are not tight. I'm not the best person to ask about this because I do not train with Atlas stones. All right, just throwing it out there. I have never trained with stones, right? I mean, obviously, you look at your avatar there, you're doing a log press overhead. I don't train in a strongman gym. I train in a fitness gym, machines and free weights and barbells and dumbbells, not logs and stones. So I am not the right person to ask about this. But with the fact that you're saying your hamstring has a sharp, tight feeling in it, something's not firing right there. I mean, it may be that you have strained the muscles, the tendons, the ligaments. Something in there is not firing the way it should be. I mean, it could be just a minor twinge or a little injury, but I would be very careful. And personally, if I was in your situation, I would not do any exercises that cause any pain or discomfort to that area until it is feeling better, or at least scale back the volume and the intensity. I mean, I know when you're lifting awkward objects like stones, that's, yeah, it's a hard exercise for sure. But the bottom line is I would try and work around that to the best of your ability and avoid any movement patterns that cause any doubt, because this is your body's check engine light is flashing, right? Warning, warning, hamstring is not feeling right. It's not firing properly. Don't push through the pain. You know, when you try and say like, man up, suffer it out, don't be a pussy, come on, no pain, no gain, like all that bullshit that people say, that's what leads to injuries, and that's what leads to setbacks. The fact that you're getting this warning sign now that something's not right, this is your cue to say like, all right, let's put that on the back burner. Let's just let it heal. I mean, sometimes it's just time. Like maybe if you avoid aggravating that hamstring, it will just heal up on its own over the course of the next few weeks or the next month or so. Who knows? Like sometimes that's is literally all it is. It just needs time to heal and recover for whatever, you know, twinge or injury you have in there. Or, I mean, it might be something more serious, but you're going to physio and they're saying that like, obviously there's nothing seriously wrong. It's not like you've torn the muscle or there's something there hindering your mobility, because you wouldn't even be in the gym if you've had a torn hamstring. But I would just pay attention to that. And for the short term, like if you can, lay off those exercises that are causing that, because for whatever reason, the body position and the movement pattern you're going in is probably just causing those muscles to fire in a way that they're not efficient in the moment, and you need to work on other exercises instead. So try your best to work around it and do more movements, you know, stretching and mobility and just general gym exercises to target the hamstrings and just see if you can kind of work through it. Right? Not necessarily max effort work either. Like think of rehab and active mobility and active recovery type of work. So lighter weight, higher reps, things of that nature. Even some types of cardio, you know, where, you know, maybe stationary bike and stair stepper, and even just walking in general, things to kind of move that stretching and mobility, and just see if that can help to alleviate it, because very often that can go a long way. And then when you are feeling a bit better, maybe try some light stone work and just see how it feels. But it's not something that's just going to cure like an overnight or anything like that. This is something that's going to take several weeks or maybe even a month or two or more, depending on, you know, the situation. But I've gone through times like this, and it's weird because there's no obvious injury, and you're like, but for some reason it just doesn't feel right. And in my case, like I'm not tied to the exercise. So if something doesn't feel right, I don't say like I got to do it, right? Like, you know, for example, like if I'm doing bench presses and for some reason it just bothers my elbows or bothers my shoulders, I'm like, well, screw it, I'm not doing bench presses. I'm gonna do something else. And I don't have any emotional attachment where, oh, I got to do this exercise, right? Like, I don't know, maybe you don't either. Like, but you don't have to lift stones, right? Like, do something else instead, right? Do something that's safer and less risk of injury. So maybe, you know, barbells, dumbbells, machines, things of that nature, where it's, you know, you're in more control and there's less risk of you getting out of position and causing that injury. But the bottom line here is, this is the warning. Don't push it, right? Because your body's giving you the warning. It's telling you, hey, change what you're doing here so that you don't turn that minor injury or that minor, you know, tight feeling into an injury. All right, who else we got there? Let's see. What are your thoughts on circadian cycle fasting? This is a new term for me. I've never heard of anybody refer to circadian cycle fasting. So I'm not going to try and bullshit anybody and give an answer. I mean, I'm not familiar with it. I'll have to Google search circadian cycle fasting. I've heard of intermittent fasting. I've heard of like prolonged fasting where people fast for multiple days and stuff like that. But a circadian cycle fasting, that's a new term for me. Never heard of that before. So I'm going to learn something new today. I've learned a new term, circadian cycle fasting, and I'll have to go on Google and look it up and see what it is. But Until you posted that comment, I had zero thoughts on circadian cycle fasting. So let's see. Check. Haley, I've been maingaining at 2,700 calories, but my lifts have stalled. Is that the right time to increase my calories to a surplus? Not necessarily. Your lifts can stall for multiple reasons, not always because you're not eating enough. Now, that may be one of the reasons, but it's not always. You really need to think of how you feel in general. Like, are you able to recover from those workouts? Do you feel like do you feel hungry? Do you feel depleted? Do you feel deprived? Right? Like, simply the fact that your gains have stalled, eventually all workouts and all progress is going to stall. And again, a lot of these questions kind of tie into one another. So, I mean, going back to what we were talking about earlier with the adapt, grow, plateau, you may be in the plateau phase of your current program, meaning you've been following it for a while. You've made some gains, you've seen some results, meaning your body has adapted to it. It's grown from it. And now you're in the phase where that's becoming just old routine. And now it's plateauing. It's not really providing any unique muscle stimulation. So maybe you just need to change up your approach, change up the exercises, change up the set and rep pattern, change up the workout order, or provide some form of unique muscle stimulation to get growing again. I would try that first versus just simply eating more, because that's a nasty trap to get into, to try and eat your way to building muscle. I mean, when it comes to nutrition, you want to eat enough so that you're fueling the workouts and you're allowing your body to have the nourishment it needs for adequate, recovery and to fuel the exercise demands. But any more than that is just excess. And excess very often gets spilled over to body fat. And look around, you see a lot of overweight people, not necessarily morbidly obese, even though, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of those too. But even when you go into the gym and you just look around, like, there's a lot of guys who, they're working out, they're training hard, they're heavy, but they got a gut, or they're soft and mushy, right? It's because they're eating too damn much. Simple. Right? You only need enough to get the job done. More is overkill, right? Like, and then that applies with nutrition. Like, a lot of people go overkill with the nutrition. They think, oh, I need to eat more. It's leg day. I got to have, I got to consume an extra 1,000 calories today because it's leg day. Or, I'm thinking, whatever, I need to eat for the workouts. No, like, you just need enough to get the job done. Any more is just going to get spilled over to excess body fat. So before you go slamming back more food or looking for an excuse to eat more, I would look into modifying the workout approach, and trying some different, like, whatever it is that you're trying to prioritize, and try a different approach. It could be as simple as trying some new exercises. And I'll tell you, this is a simple way to start making progress again with your workouts and add some variety and fun. Whatever exercises you've plateaued on, just choose a different exercise, preferably something you haven't done in a while, and focus on that new movement and making gains in that exercise. So let me give you a common one that a lot of people can probably relate to. Your bench press is plateaued, right? The bench press is the ego exercise, especially for guys. So you're working on the bench press, and all of a sudden, I can't make any gains. My bench press is not going up. All right, so you're stuck. Well, scrap the bench press and find something else. Maybe you're going to focus on a dumbbell press. Maybe you're going to focus on an incline dumbbell press. So your flat barbell bench press is plateaued. You're going to focus on the incline dumbbell bench press. Or maybe you're going to do some sort of chest press machine. I don't know, maybe the hammer strength chest press or something else. But you're going to choose a different variation. Still working the same muscles, but a different variation, and focus on making gains in that new exercise. And every time you start a new exercise or something you haven't done in a while, what's going to happen is, you're going to start off conservative, just kind of go through the motions, get used to the movement pattern. And then each workout, try to do a little better than you did before, right? Add an extra rep, try to add an extra 5 pounds or something. Just try to be better than you were before. I mean, it's not always going to happen. Some days you're going to have more energy than others, but over the long term, you try and see steady progress. And by going through a different movement pattern, a different exercise, you will just naturally progress just by being consistent with that new movement pattern. And then eventually you'll build up to a peak where that one starts to plateau. And then when that plateaus, and try something else, right? Try another exercise and go through that whole process. So literally going through that adapt, grow, plateau process. And then once you've gone through several exercises like that, Then you may be able to go back to the original one that you were stuck on. So in this case, say the bench press. And when you go back to that, chances are you probably have to start off a bit lighter than you finished off. So like, let's just say you're worked up to a max of 200 pounds. You might have to start off a bit lighter, maybe, 185 or somewhere along there. You got to start a little lighter. But then over the course of a few weeks, you eventually build yourself up to 200 pounds again. And then very often you can surpass that and hit a new personal best before you plateau and then have to go through the cycle again. And you see this a lot with training. Like this is something that I used to do a lot when I was training in powerlifting, is I have several different key exercises that were assistance exercises to help my core lifts. So I mean, in powerlifting, the main goal is the squat, bench, deadlift. But you're not always just doing squat, bench, and deadlift. You're doing other exercises that help to support those exercises. So again, like an incline dumbbell bench press, or maybe a hammer strength chest press, maybe weighted dips or something else. Some exercise that are going to help to support that exercise, but it's not the exact same movement pattern. And by strengthening all these other assistant exercises, indirectly you're helping to strengthen the key exercise that you're trying to improve. So like that's a little strategy you can go through, and it adds a lot of variety to your workouts because you're not doing the same shit all the time, right? You're going through different movement patterns, and there's not only the physical variety and the unique muscle stimulation from there, but it's the mental variety because you get to do some different stuff, and it keeps the workouts fun and interesting. All right, moving on. How are we doing for time? Holy sugar shit, man. Once I start these video chats, it's like, I don't know, time freezes because I've been talking for an hour and 16 minutes. Feels like I'm just getting started. Yeah, so with that being said, I'm probably going to get there and include this up because I know my wife's upstairs and she was preparing dinner. Now, she knows me. She knows when I say, yeah, I'm going to go downstairs and do an hour of video chat. She knows, yeah, that means he's going to be an hour and a half. She knows me. She knows the rigmarole, but it still blows my mind. Every time I would do one of these chats, it's like time freezes and it just flies. Let's see. There's so many questions I could be jumping into here. Is it normal to look worse during the early... let me show that question first. Is it normal to look worse during the early phase of losing weight? And how long does this phase last? That's a great question. And I'm actually glad you asked that. Yes, it is. And let's clarify what he means by that. Look worse, feel worse, whatever. Because let's say you're bulking up, right? You're eating a ton of food and you're all full and bloated and glycogen levels are topped up and everything else, but you got a layer of body fat, right? So you feel strong, you feel big, but you got some extra fat. So then you start going into a calorie deficit to lose weight. Once you do that, what's going to happen is now all of a sudden your glycogen levels are not topped up. So it's almost like letting some air out of the balloon. So your muscles don't have that full level of glycogen in them anymore, but you still have the same amount of body fat on the surface. So now you feel weaker. You don't feel as full, but you still got just as much body fat. And you're like, oh, I'm losing muscle. I look skinny fat now because I don't feel as full and I'm still just as fat. So I'm skinny fat. And then you get all frustrated and then you go on a bulk again. And then you end up you top up your glycogen stores, but then once you top them up, then all the excess gets stored as even more body fat. So in that initial phase, when you reduce your calories, you're probably going to feel weaker. Your muscles are probably going to feel flatter. And you're not going to look any leaner because you still got the same level of body fat on the surface. So in that initial phase, yeah, you're going to look and feel worse, but you need to go through that phase. Like suck it up, buttercup, and go through that phase and realize that once you start creating that calorie deficit and sustain that over the long term, now you're going to start to trim off that surface layer of body fat. And you're also going to start adapting to what it's like to operate with less excess calories in your system. And your body's actually going to start to utilize your stored body fat for energy. So now to fuel some of your training and to fuel some of your day-to-day activities, it's not just all going to be coming from food sources. It's going to be coming from food and body fat, right? Your body will actually start to tap into burning stored body fat. But if you're always in a calorie surplus, there's no reason for your body to be utilizing that fat. right? That's like reserve. We're going to store that fat for when there's a famine, and we there's no food available for months on end. We're built for survival, right? That's why we've survived as long as we have as a species, right? The humans are the top of the food chain. We're very efficient at preparing for survival. So we all have this layer of reserve energy called a gut. So you want to start training your body to tap into burning that reserve energy, and you need to be in a calorie deficit in order to do that. But it takes a while for you to start to adapt and get into that. But once you're into that phase and you start losing some of that surface layer of body fat, then the skin starts to thin and you start to look better, and you actually start to feel more energy with your workouts, because now you're not only relying on dietary calories, but you're also relying on body fat calories to help fuel your energy demands. And you will start to feel better. You will start to look better, but it takes several weeks in that transition phase. And it's in that transition phase where most guys give up and quit, because, they go from eating whatever the hell they want, i.e. bulking, to having a calorie deficit. And now all of a sudden, like, oh, I don't feel as strong. I don't feel as full. I'm losing muscle. Screw this. I'm going back to bulking. But if you can just go through that, like, and realize the bigger picture of what's happening here and go through that phase, you will start to come out on the other end where now you burn that surface layer of body fat. Your energy levels start to stabilize. You start to feel better and look better. And then, of course, the leaner you get, the better you look. And then it starts to snowball from there. But you got to go through that initial phase. And this is the hardest phase. Like, this is when I'm coaching people, this is where I got to be holding their hand and reinforcing them and guiding them along, because it's that initial phase where everyone is full of self-doubt and worry. And they're like, oh my God, I don't know if this is going to work or not. Man, I cut my calories and I'm not as strong as I was. I don't feel I'm still fat, but my muscles are not as full. I don't know, man. I don't know. And then everyone's doubting. I think I should, right? I think I should have a cheat meal, right? You're right. I feel I didn't hit the same weight on the bench press. I think I should have a cheat meal. I don't know. And everyone's like, and I got to be like holding their hand, and you're like, stay with me, trust me. I'm going to guide you across the bridge, right? Just trust the process. And those that trust the process, they'll come out the other side leaner and more muscular because of it. But those who give in to self-doubt and worry and everything else, they're going to stay fat and bloated. And yeah, okay, you might make good gains and be the big bulky guy, but you'll never ever see any muscle definition. You'll just be fat and smooth. All right. And so you need to trust that process. Trust the process and realize that is normal. It's totally normal. And how long does it last? I mean, it really depends on how much extra body fat you're carrying, like, until you really start to see the results. But just to put some real numbers out there, or some guidelines, back in the day when I'd be competing in bodybuilding and I was going through this on a regular basis, I got myself conditioned. Like, I didn't even count the first month of dieting. Like, I just said, I'm just going to suck it up and go through the motions. I'm not even going to worry about my progress or my strength gains or nothing like that. Like, I usually would take my before pictures before I started and take my before measurements, and I just take that and tuck it away and then forget about it. And then I say, okay, I'm going on my pre-contest diet. I'm going to start doing the cardio and all that. And I would just go through the motions, and I just say, like, I don't even care about the results. I'm not going to track my progress. I'm not going to step on the scale. I'm not going to worry about anything. I'm just going to just be like a robot and eat, sleep, train, repeat. Like, I would go through the motions and not even have any emotional attachment to the outcome. And I found, like, after that first month was over, then I would start getting into the groove. So, like, that first month was my initiation phase, if you will, to go through that. And then I would start losing some of that body fat. My body was starting to adapt to utilizing the stored body fat for energy, and I'd feel better. And very often then I could start making some new progress in a fat loss phase, and so at least a month. I mean, it may take longer depending on the individual, but like, it's so crazy. I see people say, like, oh, I went on a diet and I quit after 2 weeks. Like, 2 weeks is not long enough to see any changes or to feel the changes. Like, you need to give it a minimum of a month. And ideally, I'd even say, hey, 3 months. Like, if you got a lot of fat to lose, like 50 plus pounds or more, like, give yourself 3 months of this. Like, don't quit too soon. That's the reason why most people fail. It's not that they're doing things wrong or they don't know what to do or whatever, is they give up on themselves too damn soon. Like give yourself time to change, right? Like, it's don't give up. Don't be too eager to quit and throw in the towel. Like, a lot of people, they're all like, they start a program and they're looking for an excuse to quit the moment they start, right? Just give me a reason, right? Give me a reason to say no. Give me a reason to quit. Give me a reason to throw in the towel. Like, instead of that, look for a reason to keep going. And if you can have that persistence and keep going, even when you don't see the results initially, but you keep going, like you have faith, right? We talk about faith in so many things, like faith, whether it's in religion and spiritual or whatever, but have faith that what you're doing is going to produce results. And if you can have the faith and trust the process and stick to it, you will come out the other side. And if you don't have that faith and you can't trust the process and you give in to self-doubt too soon, then you're not going to get the results. As simple as that. So this is where having a coach can help you. And again, it goes way beyond just the tactics of here's your diet, here's your macros, here's your calories, here's your workout split. Like, someone who can help you deal with all that internal friction and self-doubt and crap that goes on in up here. Like, it's the reason why people don't succeed is very rarely physical, like meaning the calories or the macros or the workout split or the know-how. It's usually their own internal friction, their own internal ambivalence and resistance to change. That's where most people fail. It's very rarely, oh, I don't know the calories, or I don't know the workouts, or I don't know what to do. It's all up there. So if you can master the mental side, the physical side is easy. All right, guys, I'm going to clue it up because I've been rambling on way too long, as I always do. So if there's anything that I didn't address in our Q&A here today, because I know there's questions there that I didn't get around to answering, but if you have questions that you want to address to me, feel free to reach out. Like, you can friend me up over on Facebook and send me a private message there. You can send me an email. And again, I got my information in the description of this video, so feel free to reach out. So I encourage you to reach out and have a chat. And if I can help you, then I will. If not, I'll try and point you in the right direction to somebody who can. And in the meantime, have yourself a fantastic weekend. And I look forward to talking to you next week. Same time, same place. Have a good one. Take care. Over and out.